Welcome to the Geek Freaks Podcast. Before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Breaker, Castbox, Stitcher, and all other platforms you may be tuning in from. In the spirit of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we have split the first 3 episodes for the month of October into a 3-part series. I, as well as our project leads, Nick and Thony, will be discussing the whys, the hows, and the whats regarding cybersecurity for small, medium businesses. So without further ado, let's get right into part 1 of our cybersecurity series, Why Are Cyber Attackers Targeting Small and Medium-Sized Businesses? October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, something like that, right? I think I'm right about. Anybody know that? Yep, that's what it is. Got the thumbs up from Luis. So I guess if you had to look at it as a small business, medium-sized business, why? I guess, well, let's start with the why. Why are people attacking small and medium-sized businesses?
I'd say the biggest reason is because most of them aren't updated in terms of equipment that will protect them or even software that's updated.
So because they're a low point of entry for being targeted?
Yeah.
I guess the other thing, too, I mean, that's kind of spot on. I guess we can kind of go deeper into that. Why do you think that the smaller, medium-sized businesses are having such a struggle with protecting themselves?
Well, I'd say it's partly a training issue, and the other part of that would be, how do I put it? It's an entryway that they can actually branch out to others because they have probably more interaction with their actual customer base than like bigger corporations do. So then like whoever gets those emails probably is more likely to open them, more likely to click on them, and it just makes it easier to spread whatever they want to spread.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is that they're more likely to pay the ransom. So if they do get CryptoLocker, they do get ransomware, like, yeah, Bob and, Textiles Incorporated that has got 4 employees is probably a better target to pay the $500 than, a massive company. I mean, I guess we've seen cities, I think it was Boston or something, just paid like $500,000 for ransomware to be cleaned up. So I think it's everybody, but I think they're more keen now to go after the smaller businesses because they will pay it. And it's, I guess, lower barrier entry for hacking is like bad habits.
Yep.
Not all of them are partnered with a MSP or an MSSP. So they just kind of, I get email. I get it on my yahoo.com and I get all my forwards from my golf buddies and so on and so forth. It's just, training and not having that operational maturity that when it comes to technology that most companies should have.
I mean, the other part of that is just having the proper equipment to like kind of counteract it. Because when you think of it, the easiest way to counteract ransomware is backups, and it's whether they actually have a valid backup or not. And I probably wouldn't be surprised how many companies just don't even have backups at all, and that's why they're forced to pay the ransomware.
Yes, I think it's way more than you think that wouldn't have backup, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, we've walked in and talked to a company that's been around since the 70s, and their backup is that server one day is it's never gonna break, and they're running on a RAID and this and that, so it's kind of difficult because people don't want to spend that money.
Yeah,
think of an EDR like SentinelOne that resells for $7 a month per endpoint. So you got now, let's say you got 10 people, you got $70 a month in antivirus a month. I don't think people are used to paying that kind of price. So you're not getting the advanced threat detection or any of that kind of stuff. So you're right. I think it's just low cost entry and people preying on the vulnerabilities of small businesses that really don't see themselves as a
threat.
Yeah. Or a victim.
Yeah.
Potential victim.
They think I'm a small company. What
do I have that they want?
Yeah, exactly. It's not what you have. It's the fact that they can get to you, and they're going to exploit that to their, for themselves and try to get money out of you.
Do you think that it's becoming, I have to wonder that maybe it's getting this way because more and more devices are available to the network. Like a lot of small businesses now have mobile devices, tablets, that kind of stuff that they do work on. and that's connected to the network. So I feel like that's even like as the threat plane spreads and devices spread, I think that also draws a kind of an allure to the small, medium business because, again, they don't have the proper protections put in place. Like if you ask some of our users, like, what do they do to protect themselves? They're going to say, you guys or providers or antivirus but they're never going to say like they take the proper precautions to protect themselves, right? They're always relying on something else. So if there's a breakdown in what we do or what a vendor does, the end users have nothing to fall back on. And I think it goes back to your first point is the training. Like everybody's very undertrained in this arena.
Well, the other part that gets into that is actually one thing I want to talk about was social engineering. That's just getting more and more and more when you think about it. I mean, granted, some of this stuff I'm going to talk about is a little old, but it's still relevant. Like back in 2011, the Department of Homeland Security did a test of basically government locations that they dumped USBs and CDs on just to see if anybody would just even plug them in.
I'm sure a lot of them got plugged in.
Well, it was 50% would plug them in. Okay, and then
That's crazy.
It even got worse because if they went and put like a massive corporation's logo on it, it actually went up to 90% would actually plug it in. So then just a few years ago, 2016, the University of Illinois did the same thing to their own campus, dumped about 300 USB sticks to see what would happen. And now on their study, it said it didn't matter what the USB looked like. It was about a 50%, somewhere around there, would plug it in. And when they asked them why they plugged it in, it was on a basis of trying to find whose USB this was so they could return it.
That's scary to think about, like how many trade shows you go to. Or I go to as a business owner.
You went down the same path I thought of after reading this.
You know what I mean? Like that's swag, man. Steal swag 101. You want to get that swag, you want to get in there and get out. But think about so let's go back to the why. They're doing it because I don't want to say uneducated, but we're not trained to see what the threats are on this level, right? Like we're not trained to see, like we just said, like, holy shit, USB drives are given to us on a daily basis at these conferences.
Yep.
And if you're, Bobby Boberton with Textile Company and somebody hands you a USB, you're going to be like, oh, that's good. That's awesome. I love those things. I always look for them in my bag, but now I got 10 of them. And what's the first thing you do? Before you format it, before you do anything else, you just jam that in your computer and hope and pray that nothing happens. That's scary. And that's exactly why the SMBs and even micro SMBs are being attacked, because we don't have the mindset of like, holy shit, this can cost our business.
Well, and to go off that, to kind of tinfoil hat this a little, when you think about it, it may not be the company that handed you that had the malicious intent. What if either the company that made the USBs for them or somewhere in the line of basically processing, somebody else got their hands on those USBs, hoping at that trade show that company would then just hand it to everybody. So then his net just got really wide.
Blockchain. That's how we can guarantee the thoroughness of those USB drives. No, I mean it's crazy to think that. Or to think about how many small businesses don't have spam filters and what they're exposing from that angle and how they're exposed on that angle. The why is because they have data, and the why is because they'll pay the damn ransomware, and the why is because they don't have backup, so they have no choice. And it's a really scary position for anybody to be in. I mean, the last thing I ever think about is our antivirus at work, our backups at work. We think about our customers, we think about everything else, but we never think about
our own stuff.
You know what I mean? That's the conversation we have to have on some basis, is like, think about how many phone systems on holidays that we set up for our customer to go to holidays, and then you call us and it does whatever it needs to do because we forgot about ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're lazy. It's just that we're busy. And can you imagine being a small business owner and being like, oh yeah, enjoy your Christmas break? They don't think about like the scary guy behind the door. And sometimes we don't think about our own scary guy behind the door, I guess is what I'm getting at. I mean, we have 2FA turned on for everything.
Pretty much.
Yep.
So then if you go to an SMB right now and you're like, hey, you got 2FA turned on, they'll be like, what the hell is that? Because predominantly people put that to banks or your bank account or anything else. They don't put it towards everyday usage. So do you guys have anything to add to the why? I mean, our biggest threats too, well, I have the sheet of paper in from this presentation. 10% of the attacks are coming from the Middle East. 32% of the attacks are from Russia, and 25% of the attacks are from China. And those are from our Meraki's, from the reports I could pull from what we could see with our advanced threat. That's crazy to think. But at the end of the day, I guess our biggest threats are ourselves.
Yeah, because like I was saying, it goes back to that social engineering of whether they, can get you to click on that or open whatever.
This is from Microsoft, so I got to credit the source, so it's not just Ron. By 2020, 25 billion devices will be connected to the internet. 82% of companies expect to face a cyber attack in 2019. 2 billion customer records will be compromised. 1 million pieces of malware are being created every day. That's crazy. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that, like the other stats, because I was curious, like 1 million pieces, how much money does that take? But they've had to have made millions of dollars. There's so much money in this ransomware game that we don't account for.
Well, and the other part of that is when you think about it, some of those countries that are doing that, it's that the reason it's happening now is because they've grown up doing it, that it's been this push to learn code to get a job. Well, then all of a sudden that job is now, creating ransomware for some guy to make some money. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's several corporations in these countries that the guy, I'm sure he knows what he's making, but he doesn't care. He's getting paid.
I don't think they care. I mean, some people do it for the thrill, right? But some people are like you're saying, they're just getting that dollar bills, y'all. Or yens. I don't know where they're from. So, like, recently in the news, I had this in this presentation. Genesee County was down for 24 hours. So that's in Michigan. They got attacked by ransomware. Brookside ENT and Hearing Center in Battle Creek closed permanently from ransomware. They'll never reopen because they got ransomware and they had no plan to recover.
I'm sure they had the funds to pay that ransom.
I think it came down to, and I haven't caught up with it, but I think it came down to we're not going to pay it.
Yeah.
We're just going to shut it down. Yep. Which I get it. America. Support America. Do your American thing. You don't want to fund terrorism because it's essentially what it is. But at the end of the day, that's a shitty move.
It is.
City of Baltimore spent over $6 million paying ransomware. Ottawa Community Health Systems, so a third-party biller was breached, and it got back to their systems. 15,000 patients' PHI information was released, and that was through phishing. Lansing Board of Water and Light was phished and encrypted, so they got ransomware via a phishing attack. Like, this is happening all the time, and people don't. I don't want to say they don't care, but they're really not putting in the efforts. I mean, we care about it. You've asked any of the people that have come through this door and walked out of this door that they cared about, lost sleep. I mean, I remember talking to one of our former colleagues. I was like, I can't sleep because I'm worried something's going to happen, and we're responsible for it. So, I mean, it is on our head, but it's not on a lot of people's heads, and nor where they spend the money to do the protection.
No, and I think it's part, like, you don't see this data, right? It's not something you can physically see all the time, and you don't think, okay, is it protected, or can someone just access it and, hold it ransom?
Is it in harm's way?
Right. So it's not something that's probably why people don't think about it.
Well, the other thing is, are they putting too much trust in their employee? Because they're like, Susie Q's not going to click on that. We'll be fine. And then Susie goes and clicks on it.
Well, and a lot of the things too is like you guys both been when we're meeting with potential customers is they're like, no, we have everything. We have the spam filter, we have the firewall, we have the antivirus, and we do have a backup. And most people have that. But when was the last time backups have been checked? Mm-hmm. What's your spam filter letting in? Oh, it's letting in everything, even those emails that I get from my golf buddies that are forwards that have attachments to it. The firewall hasn't really been looked at or updated in ages, so the update pattern's a little screwy.
Or it's the one that they bought off of the Best Buy shelf. Those are always fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so before we get down that rabbit hole, let's talk about how. How are these people getting to us? We know why they're getting to us, but how are they getting to us?